The year is 2022, and Atlus is celebrating not the 30th anniversary of Shin Megami Tensei, they are instead celebrating the 25th anniversary of Soul Hackers. Yes, all the way back in 1997, Atlus Japan released Soul Hackers, originally on the Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1, later released around the world on Nintendo 3DS in 2012, and now 10 years after that Nintendo 3DS release, we are here celebrating the series turning 25 with the surprise release of Soul Hackers 2. No Shin Megami Tensei, not even Devil Summoner, just Soul Hackers 2. And I am here to review it. Shoutouts to the folks at Atlus West for supplying me with a review code on all platforms. So I got to check out the game, and it will be available on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PlayStation 5, Series S, Series X, and PC. All of the footage you are watching in this review is from the PlayStation 5 version of the game, but we will talk about performance later. First up, let's just talk about the game. Soul Hackers 2 is, right off the bat, not something you need to have played the original for. It is a sequel in name alone. It takes place in the same world as the original Soul Hackers. It has lots of familiar themes like you've seen. Obviously, it still has all of the demons you know and love from Shin Megami Tensei as well as Persona. There are many returning demons now in 3D for the first time, as well as plenty you've seen all the way back in Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne on the PS2. The story of Soul Hackers 2 is actually pretty simple. It's easily got to be one of the most shallow but interesting stories Atlus has done in a really long time, and I don't mean shallow in a sense of there's not a lot to it. I'm sure coming off of Shin Megami Tensei 5, a lot of people may be interested or curious or even cautiously optimistic about Soul Hackers 2, and when I say shallow, it's not for a lack of story being there. This is a very meaty story mode if you want to really sink your teeth into everything. When I say shallow, I mostly just mean in terms of the world building. You are thrown into this world with a splash text screen, and you are introduced to Ringo, our main protagonist, who thankfully is voiced, as well as Fig, and you will meet the rest of your party very shortly. This game starts off at a running pace and never really stops, but on the slower moments you do kind of stop and realize, hey, this world is on the brink of apocalypse. There are two warring nations, Yatagarasu and the Phantom Society. These two warring factions are made up of Devil Summoners. Devil Summoners have the ability to make contracts and summon demons, have multiple demons in their party, and so on and so forth. And both of them are basically trying to find these things known as covenants. All you need to know about covenants, think of them as this game's MacGuffin. You need to find all 5 covenants before the end of the world happens. It's a very simple story. You are brought into the world through the power of Aeon. The best way to sum up what Aeon is Aeon is basically just the supercomputer network god that exists in the ethereal network. Aeon has been watching over society for hundreds and hundreds of years, but only ever observing. Now that they see that both Yatagarasu and the Phantom Society are about to bring upon the end of the world, or what looks to be the end of the world, Aeon brings life into Fig as well as Ringo. Both of them are given synthetic life, and the best way to describe it is actually just ripped out of the game. They are supercomputers squeezed into a grandfather clock. They are mostly human, they have personalities, they're not a fish out of water in the sense of they're not asking, what's this, what's sushi, what's food? They're the internet. They have all of the same information we would have. So there's not that awkward fish out of water story that you're seeing in most protagonists. And also, there are no silent protagonists in this game. You still make choices through your playthrough, but you're not just having to wonder, hey, this person's really quiet for being the main leader of this group, which is a nice change of pace. Back to the story. Like I said, very simple plot. Yatagarasu and Phantom Society need to be stopped. You need to find certain individuals, collect all the covenants, and stop the end of the world from happening. And really the only thing you need to know is very quickly upon starting the game, you are introduced to your other party members. So while Fig is never playable, Ringo is able to fight alongside 3 other Devil Summoners, Arrow, who is a member of Yatagarasu, Melody, who worked for the Phantom Society, and Saizo. Saizo was just a contractor and worked freelance, so has experience working on both sides and is kind of a good neutral ground. He's not on one side or the other, but is very well versed on the world and the factions that exist in it. Together, these main 5 are a really memorable cast. Even though, like I said, Fig is not playable, she is always constantly in your ear, whether it be in the bird form Mimi or in cutscenes. They are always talking to each other. These 5 definitely feel like a team very quickly. You're introduced to everyone and you fill up your party very, very quickly, and it is kind of nice how the game just kind of throws you into the story without feeling like, okay, I don't know who these people are. You're introduced to everyone at a very steady pace. Ironically, you actually meet all of your party members after they have recently been killed. So, after you bring them back to life, which is called soul hacking in this game, yes, soul hacking is said a lot, and it is just the act of bringing someone back and you're hacking their soul out of their dead body to make them alive again. And there are other very complicated things relating to the word soul hacking that I will not get into for spoiler's sake, but I do want to say it never got boring. There were times where you kind of have to laugh along with it, because hearing people say with a straight face, I need to soul hack him or her, is very funny. But yes, one of the interesting little caveats about soul hacking is the effects it has on Ringo, as well as the 3 other devil summoners she brings back. As a after effect for being brought back to life, all 3 of your party members are not able to use their comps to summon demons without Ringo's help. So that is why they all come together, because if it wasn't for Ringo, they would all still be dead, and they are not able to actually be true devil summoners without Ringo's assistance. Now, the shallow world building in Soul Hackers 2 never actually detracted from my enjoyment of the overall story. While I would have definitely enjoyed learning more about Yatagarasu and the Phantom Society, and even Aeon, I enjoyed learning about these cast of characters, the heroes, the villains, the summoners, and everything in between. This was a really fun world just to live in. I got the premise, I understood it all very quickly, and I enjoyed learning about all the different characters, whether it be villains like Iron Mask, who has an iron mask, or other characters such as Ash, which is Saizo's ex-girlfriend, or Raven, who was kind of like Arrow's mentor. There are not a lot of characters in this game, but each of the party members all have someone who kind of complements them. And that's one of the things I really liked about this game's story, with the cast being so strong and so tight, was that each one of the characters had someone to really kind of bounce off of, whether it be learning about their backstory, like learning about how Melody was actually Iron Mask's girlfriend or right hand, whatever. Like, she was there by his side, and now she's having to actually hunt down her past lover. It's a lot of complicated feelings and stuff for it. So it's a really nice thing of the story doesn't ever get in the way of evolving the characters. Obviously, it would be nice to kind of like learn more details for it, but like I said, the story is not Shakespeare. It's nothing that crazy. You're looking for 5 covenants. Think of them as your MacGuffins or Infinity Stones. Stop Iron Mask from getting all 5 covenants. Save the world. Happy ending. Now, thankfully, the story is not that cut and clean in terms of what actually happens from the beginning of it all the way to the end. There are twists and turns. There were moments I was legitimately surprised, and I really enjoyed just the overall tone of everything. It felt like an adult story. This didn't just feel like your normal run-of-the-mill, cookie-cutter, stereotypes, anime kind of thing you've seen a million times before. And also, it just didn't feel like something I had played from an Atlas game in the past. It very much felt like its own unique universe, which was nice. It didn't just feel like, oh, we're trying to be SMT, or oh, we're trying to be the original Soul Hackers again. Like, they all stand on their own 2 feet, which is really, really nice. Now, besides the story, of course, the gameplay of Soul Hackers 2 is extremely addictive and very satisfying, and it has an incredibly rewarding loop. If you've ever played or have any experience playing the Wii U or Switch exclusive Tokyo Mirage Sessions, that game had a really good scope in terms of how big its world was, but its gameplay loop in terms of going to these dungeons, grinding enemies, upgrading your weapons, getting more powerful, just constantly hitting that dopamine in your brain. And I have to say, I am extremely surprised that Atlas have somehow one-upped themselves with Soul Hackers 2. There's not an infinite amount of things to do. This is not an open world game. You're not having to manage your time. There are central hub areas you go to when you're not in dungeons. You can eat food, you can do side quests, you can find different dungeons, you can explore, talk to people, fill out requests, do different jobs and things like that. I was surprised how overall addictive upgrading my character's comps and giving them the best accessories made me want to just play the game and do every piece of side content I could, even when I could have just blown through the game's story in like 25 to 30 hours. I didn't beat this game's story mode myself until over 60 hours of game time. I just wanted to do every piece of content because it was all fun, it was always rewarding my character, and I always felt like it had a tangible upgrade, whether it be I'm meeting new demons, I'm able to fuse new demons, I'm getting new accessory parts, I'm getting new materials for item crafting. There's a lot of loops that you can do in terms of just, here's a stat increase, here's new commander skills. Commander skills let Ringo either give buffs, stack different bonuses, just make that combat loop more and more satisfying. Now, for anyone out there who is familiar with Persona or Shin Megami Tensei, I do want to note a couple of things about the combat system. It does look very familiar. Obviously, you have your items, you have your skills, but there is no demon negotiation. The way you obtain demons are basically when you're out and about in the world, you will find demons through your other demons. So your demons are what fill out the dungeon. Your demons will find you materials, they can heal you occasionally, give you side quests, and your demons can also help you recruit demons of your level or lower, and when they find them, it'll be an example of, oh hey, my Pixie found a Jack Frost, or maybe now my Jack Frost helped me find a Sandman, and so on. And it's a really nice rewarding loop of just constantly getting demons in and out of your party without having to feel like you're just doing the same thing you've done in Shin Megami Tensei or Persona for many years now. Now, obviously, the fact that there is no negotiation, I can understand as being a bit of a downer, but because there are already so many games that do it, I kind of like that this was a little bit more streamlined, and there are no lack of demons. There are over 100 different demons for you to collect in this game and fill out the compendium, and that's not even counting the DLC ones, but we'll get to that later in the video. But yeah, the overall gameplay loop I really couldn't enjoy more for the battle mechanics, upgrading your character, really, really fun stuff. The side quests were nice. I was surprised how constantly the requests you would get from the characters and the different shop owners all tied into one another. There were various different times I'd be like, oh hey, I know that person actually. And even on the tiny ones where it might just be, oh here's a random NPC and their girlfriend, or here's a random demon quest, seeing how they'd all tie in together and it would have you explore the world is really, really nice. Now, I kind of mentioned a little bit before, the world is not massive. You are going through tiny hub areas of, I'm walking down the shop district, I'm walking down the bar district, I'm walking down the demon summoner alley district. There's not a ton of places for you to explore, and even when you're in them, they usually only hold 2 or 3 buildings and a couple of different people to talk to, but it never felt like, oh, this is a really tiny world. It was just like, yeah, I'm checking out these main highlight areas in the city. It's very separate from the dungeons. The dungeons are their own thing. The dungeons are probably going to be a little bit controversial in the sense of they definitely start very slow in terms of how visually interesting they are. Your first one is a shipping yard, so a lot of cargo stuff, a lot of dark colors, nothing really popping all that much outside of your characters and their demons. Then you eventually go into a soul dungeon, which is just like, hey, here are these sort of easy, and then eventually get really confusing and a lot more challenging Soul Matrix dungeons that you'll be going back to and upgrading your character. Again, just going back to really addictive gameplay loop, so you just cannot get rid of it, even in the dungeons. The dungeons have you going back to them just for getting more new abilities, more new things to just make your battles more fun, more enjoyable, making your character a better devil summoner. But yeah, so the number of dungeons are not that vast, but they definitely do improve overall with quality the further you get. The first dungeon you're going to be at is going to be pretty straightforward. It's not going to be that visually exciting, but they will keep getting more and more complex, or doing other side quests will bring you back, and finding more things, kind of hidden little secrets or areas, was always really rewarding. So even though running through a underground subway line might not be that fun, there's going to be an example of, oh hey, you're trapped in this subway and there's a demon who's making all these like invisible walls pop up and you have to learn the secret to getting around. Stuff like that's really, really fun, and I really appreciated the dungeon design a lot more, especially towards the end. It was very memorable for me. Outside of the story and the gameplay, I do want to give an extra special shout out to this game's presentation. I don't say this very often, and it's not because I have anything against the engine. Soul Hackers 2 is without a doubt the best looking game in Unity I have ever seen. It is the best looking and performing game I have seen running on PlayStation 5, PC, and Xbox Series X in my almost decade plus experience with Unity as an engine. Now, Unity, when I saw Atlas was making Soul Hackers 2 with this, I was very surprised because they've used something like Unreal very recently with SMT5. They've had proprietary engines forever, but this one didn't really seem like it was doing anything that crazy that they would need to use a different engine for it. But I will say, the presentation for this has absolutely landed. It has a very bright and colorful cell shading look to everything. All of the demons, even the ones that, like I said, have just basically been ripped over from PlayStation 2 games, look better than they ever have before. The details, the black, thick outlines are really, really nice and making characters sort of stand out. Like looking at something like Angel in Persona 5 compared to Angel in Soul Hackers 2, it's a night and day difference, even though it's the same model. The fact of how each of the characters are colored, how they look, how they animate, it's really, really nice. It really, really makes a big difference. And also, I can't talk about animation without bringing up the frame rate. If you are playing this on PlayStation 5 or Series X or PC, this game has a 60 FPS mode, and it looks fantastic. This game was animated to be ran in 60 FPS, and this is the way to play the game. There is a 4K mode on consoles, but I cannot recommend it at all. The 4K mode just looks really sluggish. It's clearly running at half the speed, and the visual upgrades, because it is such a graphically unique looking game, like it doesn't need to be running in 4K for it to look great. In 60 FPS, I was getting 1440p output and it looked fantastic. I did not need it to be in 4K. It was not worth the frame rate reduction. So if you have a newer piece of hardware that you can run this on, or if your PC is good enough, play this in 60. It was designed at 60. It looks best at 60. But if you have a PS4 or an original Xbox One, this still runs fine. I really think it was just something about trying to get it to run in 4K makes it run sub 30, and it just really wasn't working on any system I saw that really made a noticeable difference. Thankfully, on last gen, the game has been tuned to look a little bit better running at 30. You will notice a difference more if you've played it 30. You'll definitely notice the comparison a lot more if you're swapping back and forth, but most people aren't, unless you're a weirdo like me and like looking at technical differences in games. If you only play this on a PlayStation 4, a base PlayStation 4 no less, and it's at 30 FPS, you're not going to think anything's off. It's only more noticing and jarring coming from really high visuals, 60 FPS, buttery smooth, never dropped at all, no hiccups or anything, to just being like, oh, okay, yeah, that's literally half the speed. So I know some people don't care about frame rates, especially when it comes to RPGs, but I at least have to give a shout out because Atlas has not really done that many RPGs in-house themselves running at 60 FPS. Especially, it's important to note that this is Atlas's first internally developed game on Xbox in a very long time, and their first game for these new generations of consoles with the Series X, S, and PS5. So if you have a new machine or if your PC is capable of handling it, this game runs and looks fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. But looks are definitely not everything. This game looks fantastic, but thankfully also sounds fantastic. The production team who did the soundtrack for this game is Team Monica, who some of you may know have worked and produced on different titles such as various different anime. Most people probably know Team Monica from the Nier Automata soundtrack. But I must say, this one, it never really felt like it was trying to go for, oh, it's sounding like this. It found a unique voice, and instantly, kind of from that start of the opening song all the way to the end credits, I was always really digging every battle soundtrack. Nothing ever got old. The tracks never felt like, oh, we're just trying to sound like future SMT. Kind of going back to this standing on its own 2 feet. This has really been cemented for me, and Atlas Japan has been selling this game as, hey, we're trying to sell this as its own franchise. We're not trying to sell this as another Persona or another Shin Megami Tensei. We want this to be its own new series, and the music is definitely a big factor of this. The music feels like its own beast. I really, really liked a lot of the tracks. The battle tracks were always really good, nice use of electronics. Not actually that heavy on vocals, which I think the opening track may have made people think there were going to be more vocal tracks in the whole soundtrack nonetheless. But the boss themes are really, really nice. And I was just constantly and pleasantly surprised at how many absolute bangers there were in terms of catchy shop music, emotional moments for the story, and even those themes that would pop up every now and then for returning characters or returning plot lines that I just think did a really, really great job, and I cannot wait till this full soundtrack is out for everyone to listen because it is very, very good. Now, I mentioned back with the story that the game took me 60 hours to beat. That was on normal. There are 3 levels of difficulty that are available in the base game. There's easy, which basically just means that if you ever fall in battle, you have unlimited continues. You can get your health back. There's nothing really stopping you. As long as you can keep pressing the continue button, you can make it through any battle. But what's nice is the easy AI doesn't feel like so easy it's insulting, like a lot of SMT safety difficulties normally end up being. And next is normal mode. Now, normal mode needs a standing ovation from all of the people who have been saying Atlas games recently have been too hard, too easy, too baby mode, too grindy. This game's normal mode is the perfect challenge. There is the right amount of customization. The game will still kill you. It is very quick to kind of make sure you know, hey, you're going to die if this happens, but you have the tools to either get yourself more powerful without it feeling like a grind. This is still a very linear RPG, so it's not feeling like you're just grinding for nothing, kind of going back to that gameplay loop. It's always rewarding. It's always getting you stronger. You're always learning new things, getting new demons. And normal mode, I just have to give a big shout out for. I had no complaints. There was no one boss where it spiked or, oh man, yeah, this area is super unfair. You've got to grind forever. And going back to those continues like I talked about, you have a very limited number of continues. They are these special items. You can only hold up to 9, but the only way you get them is by finding them on very rare drops. So you're either wanting to use them so you can continue in battle without having to be sent to the game over screen, or if you don't want to have to use continues in battle, the game doesn't force you to use them. You can just say no and then play through it in a normal old-fashioned way. Finally, there's hard. Hard is thankfully not bash your head against the keyboard levels of hard that you're wondering, why am I doing this? It's definitely still manageable. It's definitely fun. It's definitely challenging. It'll make the game a lot more slower for you if you're wanting to kind of test your skills, test your, like, what's the best kind of damage you can get out of each scenario with each setup, each summoner, and so on. Now, there is no continuing in that mode. Every time you die in battle, you are instantly sent back to the main screen. There are no continues, so you've got to be really careful with every battle and making sure you're saving all the time. Now, there is a 4th and free DLC difficulty level called Very Hard. Now, that basically has different things to make the game even harder than hard mode, but that was not available for me during the course of this review, but I wanted to let you all know about the DLC nonetheless because this game is launching with a whole horde because this game is launching with a whole helping load of DLC options. There are 2 free pieces of free DLC for everybody. They are not timed. Very Hard is one of them. And then there is also a useful item bonus pack, which will just give you some handful of items that you'll be able to use in battle with you. Nothing that crazy. The game is very fair about limiting you with the super OP items and whatnot. Along with free Very Hard mode and free items on day 1, there will also be paid costume packs, which will give you new costume packs, accessories, and music for when you're in the battle. There are also DLC demons such as Mara and Nemissa from the original Soul Hackers, along with various other returning classic demons. There are also DLCs to make it easier for you to grind for materials, level up your character faster, or just make more money. And finally, there is a story piece of DLC called The Lost Numbers. All of these DLC I will be covering later on in the channel, but I did want to let you know that there is multiple pieces of DLC available for this game. But my big takeaway with that, even though I am not a huge fan of DLC being sold day 1, for a $60 price tag, this game has tons of content. From its first playthrough to New Game Plus, there are so many activities for you to complete. And even in New Game Plus, there are exclusive activities, there are exclusive side quests, there are different things you can encounter each playthrough. You can run through and finally check off the different multiple options and choices you made along the way. See what happens if you get this ending, or see what happens when you get that ending. And yes, there are multiple endings. It's not crazy deep, but it is still interesting enough that you would want to check out everything the game has to offer from a story aspect. I really have to say, I think Atlas have really knocked it out of the park with this one. I was a long-time Soul Hackers fan, even before the original game finally came out in the West on 3DS. I was always a sucker for futuristic, demon summoning, and this game really gave me a lot of stuff I wasn't expecting. This is not a safe sequel. This is not trying to pander to the least common denominator. This is just a very solid JRPG that definitely didn't have the world's biggest budget. This game definitely shows that it did have a very constrained budget, but for the game that's there, everything's great. I cannot recommend this game enough wholeheartedly, day one, full price. If you are even remotely interested in RPGs, whether this be your first Atlas RPG or your 100th Atlas RPG, check this game out. It runs great. Obviously, if you can play it on a PlayStation 5, Series X, or PC, running at higher settings, that is the preferred way to play it, but it is a fantastic experience. I cannot recommend it enough, and I am definitely excited for the future of this franchise. Whether we continue the adventure of Ringo, Arrow, Saizo, and Melody, or if we end up just getting a complete new cast, new setting, new everything, but still have that Soul Hackers 2 feeling at its core, I'm really, really excited for it. But either way, I've talked for a very, very long time. I hope this video was informative to you. If you are excited about Soul Hackers 2, please consider subscribing. I have a ton of other content coming to the channel talking about which platform I think is the best place to play it on, differences, DLC reviews, so much more, spoiler casts, and if you are a fan of all things Atlas, SMT, or Persona, please consider checking out my podcast, Shin Megami Tensei Network. Uploads every week here on YouTube, so if you want to follow it, you can find it on podcast services everywhere, or you can just go and subscribe on YouTube. It really, really helps. I am trying to do the impossible, and if you could help me, I would really appreciate it. Not only thank you for watching this video, but I am trying to get to 7,000 subscribers by September, and if we can make that happen with this review, that would mean the world to me. If you enjoyed this video, if you have any comments, criticisms, questions, things I didn't cover, please let me know in the comments below. Sharing the video helps, everything helps, but honestly, if you made it this far, I'm just super appreciative that you took the time to listen. Thank you all very much once again. Have a good rest of your day, and I will soul hack you later. Bye.